The modern world, 1980s to the present. We're going to start in Latin America. Now, Latin America is the area basically south of the United States of America, including Mexico, the Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, going all the way into Brazil, Argentina, Peru of South America. It has a great variation of latitudes, longitude, and of course landforms, resulting in diverse climates. It also is the home of the Andes Mountains, which form the backbone of South America, and the Amazon rainforest, which basically is the heart of South America. Because of all this, the areas are very cultural diverse. Now, following World War II, the military was most resisted social and economic change. Most of Latin American countries after World War II were ruled through a military dictatorship. However, during the last few decades, there's been some popularly elected leaders. A huge, staple in Latin America is the Roman Catholic Church. Most Latin Americans, Latinos, are Roman Catholic. They take their church very seriously. And so the church has also helped to slow down reform. It has not been a big proponent of change. And the church also struggled against military regimes that tried to control it. The guy right there, that is the picture of the latest pope, and he is from Argentina, so he is trying to help this whole region of the world. Now we're going to swing over to Eastern Europe, the Balkans. After World War II and after the fall of communism, there was a huge movement of nationalism that I talked about with the fall of communist video. And the Yugoslavia Balkan region was really the heart of this nationalism. And unfortunately, there you have a lot of different ethnic groups living in the Balkan area. And we've talked about this. It was a problem even before World War II and World War I. Of course, we know that Sarajevo was the city where World War I basically started with the assassination of the Archduke. And so in 1991, Yugoslavia split up, and different countries said they were now independent of Yugoslavia. You had areas of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and in those areas you had a group called the Serbs, the Serbians, and the Serbs were running these countries. All right, they were running these areas, and they were through a military dictatorship, and they were ethnic cleansing the Bosnians that were in this area. Okay, the Bosnians were mostly Muslim, and they just didn't like the Bosnians, and so they were ethnically cleansing them, meaning removing them, their entire ethnic group they were trying to kill off. It was incredibly bloody, and millions died. The ethnic cleansing of in the Balkans violated the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that was formed after World War II. And the United Nations attempted to get involved. It didn't always work, but they attempted. Now, in the Middle East, they also were having issues. Following Al-Qaeda and bin Laden's 9/11 attacks, the U.S. conducted its war on terror, specifically in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, we are still fighting these wars. We know this. We still have issues in Afghanistan, even though we say we're out of it. We still have lots of issues in Iraq, even though we say our military being the United States of America, is out of it. But this area of the world is still a hotbed of problems and conflict, and there doesn't seem to be any, stopping right now. Now, in the Middle East, starting in 2010, there was something we called the Arab Spring. And spring is bringing new life. Springtime, the season of new life. And it began in Tunisia. And it was a series of Arab uprisings to bring more freedom, more democracy into the Middle Eastern countries. The heartbeat of all this was social media, being Facebook and the internet. These people had no freedom of speech, very little freedom, if anything, but the power of the cell phone and Facebook allowed them to start these grassroots movement to kick out their dictators and They could stop printing a newspaper. The government could come in and say, you can't read that book, but you can't shut down the entire internet. And no matter what they did, these text and these protest pages and things were still able to stay up through the power of technology. And it really brought several countries down to their knees, and several dictators were forced to leave because their people were not having it anymore. The countries involved in the Arab Spring were Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, and Yemen. Now, this started in 2010, and literally all of these countries, especially Syria and Yemen, are still in the news today. Yemen, we are on the verge of invading. They're having horrible, as we speak, civil war going on there. Here it is, May 2015, and we're trying to get involved. Syria is in a horrible crisis. They had been for the last several years, and there still are, literally hundreds of thousands of refugees. People are dying all over the place. No medical care, no clean water. It's just a horrible, horrible situation, and the government's not trying to help them there. The Syrian government is basically not doing much. So this whole area has really been a hotbed for problems, and with all of this Arab Spring, you have a lot of radical terrorist groups coming in and trying to take over these countries also, which is very, very nerve-wracking. Now, a different part of the world today is a lot of science and technology. So there's a couple key things here we have to go over. The Green Revolution. When you hear the word Green Revolution, that means more food. Think more food. It's not anti-pollution or anything like that. The Green Revolution was all about increasing food production to feed people. It means more irrigation, fertilizers, pesticides, new grains and livestock, a lot of hybrid breeding to get stronger corn, stronger wheat, stuff like that. And of course, new machinery. So the Green Revolution happened in India. It happened a lot of places, but India was the big spot. It did not help with pollution because a lot of the fertilizers and pesticides they were using actually were polluting the land, the air, and the water. So they actually were not helping in the whole scheme of things. But they didn't think about that. All they thought about was getting more food to the people. Now, besides the Green Revolution, you had the Computer Revolution. After the invention of the silicon chip, computers got smaller and smaller, and we see this every day with our cell phones. And now we know computers are used for businesses, governments, people for socially, and of course the Arab Spring, which we just talked about a little while ago. This is one of the big things when people talk about terrorism, is it's no longer about weapons of, having, machine guns or bombs or anything like that. But people worry about what happens if someone were to cause the internet to fail indefinitely. If someone could stop, internet from working, if all of a sudden everybody's signal goes down, or everybody's Google gets infected, or their iPhones all get infected with the same virus. This could literally cause hundreds of millions of dollars in economic losses. You can't pay your bills. You can't go to work. Just everything is dependent on computers today. So that's why cybersecurity is such a growing business. Now, with the computer revolution, as I just said, you've got the information revolution. It's part of the internet. You've got Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, email, all of that, and it's very easy for people to get information. Sometimes it's too much information, and people get confused. What's the truth? What's not the truth? Well, it's very easy for propaganda to be spread because with the internet always being opened. And a lot of times people, there's too much information sharing. Obviously you all have heard of the internet bullying and things like that, but you get people whom just have too much information there. People your credit card bills can be hacked, your social security number can be hacked, things of that nature. So the information revolution, some people see as a good thing, but it also had some negative things. And yes, did it make our life easier? But do people have to be more careful? Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, in the 2000s, we have a lot of environmental problems going on. We have climate change and global warming. All right, and the major causes of this are fossil fuels, which lead to the depletion of the ozone layer. You can see that there in the photos. So too many cars burn, too much coal, all of that hurts the environment. Now, the effects of all this is the rise of greenhouse gases. This causes the greenhouse effect, basically making the temperatures go up warmer and warmer. And you may say, okay, that's fine, but we're still having really cold winters. That is true. For us in upstate New York, we still have very cold winters. But if you look globally, our icebergs are shrinking, our polar ice cap is shrinking, and you also have horrible droughts. You look out in California and out west, they literally, their lakes and their reservoirs have dropped not just inches, but literally 10 to 20 feet in water level. It's very scary, and that'll mean a rise for us here in little old New York for all of our produce. When you go to buy fruits and veggies from the supermarket, the prices are only going to go up and up and up. Deforestation and the destruction of the rainforest, especially in Brazil, India, and Indonesia. They use it for harvesting the lumber, the wood to use for buildings and things like that, and for clearing the land to make room for crops, cattle, and homes. And you can see there on this map, you could see where all the forest used to be in the dark green in the original forest cover, and then you can see down below, as of 2000, this is 2005, what forests are left. And I can tell you today, 2015, 10 years later, it's a lot worse. All right, many of the forests are being cut down, and it just can't be sustained unless we find different ways to keep the forests alive and stop cutting them down. The effects of the deforestation, is changes in local weather patterns, buildup of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the greenhouse gas effect, global warming, and of course soil erosion. All those trees hold the dirt down. The trees are gone, the dirt's going to get swept away from wind and rain, landslides, and things like that. And of course you have extinctions of plants and animals that in some cases we didn't even know existed. Because if there's no plants for them to eat, the animals have got to move or die off. Desertification is the changeover from good farmland into desert sand land. And this is very dangerous because you can't farm in the desert. Causes for it are human activity, overgrazing of livestock, and cutting down the natural forests. You can see there where the deserts are around our planet on the map, and the biggest ones and the hottest ones are the yellow, and then of course you have dry land from going to the orange to the darker brown. The effects of desertification are grass and trees are eliminated, the soil loses its nutrients. Without plant roots to hold the soil, wind erosion removes the fertile topsoil, and the land is unable to sustain plant life. And basically people go hungry. You can't plant crops, you can't farm, you're going to go hungry. And this is the biggest problem in Africa. They're having the Sahara Desert grows by several inches every year, which to you and I, you may think a couple inches isn't that big a deal. Well, you do a couple inches over 50 years, you're going to have a problem. And of course, famine, and the Sahara Desert is expanding at the rate of 50 miles per year. So it's just getting 50 miles wider every year. And you can see here that the map, that is a lake in the middle picture. And you can see the lake is full of water. This lake is in Africa. And you can see today, here it is approximately 30 years later, and that map is down, or that lake is down to nothing. You can see that it's almost completely dried up due to desertification and cutting off of the natural underwater water to flow up into the lake and things like that. So it is a big issue for people in Africa. And also, desertification is happening even here in California, in our desert area of southwest United States. We have issues where there's not enough water for us. So these are very real problems that are affecting us all today in the world we live in.